Hello, friends and countrymen, and welcome back to another Judge Janey. No, I didn't disappear forever, just a few months. It's not that I don't want to make videos, it's more of just sitting down and actually doing it. That's the hard part. You get really discouraged after a while, and then once you sort of get out of the groove of doing it, it becomes way harder. Hopefully the sound quality is better in this one, though, because I have my better mic going. I invested in one a while back, and yeah, just like haven't used it. I recently got scammed by a voice acting gig too. I thought it was real. It wasn't. It was a scam. Yeah, don't believe anyone who wants to give you money to pay for equipment, especially if you already have that equipment. No, I need to have more fun in my life, and making videos is really, really fun, especially for the comment section. You guys have no idea how much I live for the comments. So many of you are funnier than me, and I absolutely adore it, especially on the Olyve videos when you guys are just like fucking going into it and keeping up with my shtick, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you guys so much. Moving on to something I want to complain about. Recently saw the new Insidious movie, and it was terrible. I remember watching the first one ages ago and being kind of like, oh, this isn't very good. Like, it was kind of okay. But then you saw the monstery dude from the Further, as it's called, which is a decent name for like an alternate realm, the Further. I don't know. There's a nice play on words there. I'll give them that. But unfortunately, like, the main villain is just kind of silly. It was more comical looking and acting than really terrifying for me. I mean, they mostly relied on jump scares, but so this, I think it was like the third or fourth one, I don't know. They only referenced back to the first one. So if you've only seen the first Insidious movie, you can see the new one. However, I don't recommend it. There are some really delightfully gross moments, which as a horror writer I can appreciate. It's a type of horror, it's gross out horror, and done in the right way can really get under your skin. And that's what we're trying to do as horror writers. We're trying to bring out the weird and bring out the feelings that we're uncomfortable with on a regular basis. True crime nutcases have kind of ruined that, though. I'll have to talk about that one in another video, because I love true crime, but some people love true crime too much. The pacing is really, really painful. They could have cut it down by 10 minutes, if not more, because of the amount of moments that are just silence or like violins going while like the character looks into the camera is like like just twitchy moments where it's just, they're really dragging it out. It's stationary on one thing, or it's doing a slow zoom or slow zoom out, and you just get kind of tired of it, or at least I did. I was just like, come on, get on with it. Oh god, God bless the friend that I was with, because I was so obnoxious the whole time. I was just like making comments, even during the previews, because I guess they only show horror movie previews when they show horror movies. I don't know. I don't know if it was the theater that I went to. I haven't been to a movie theater in a really long time. I haven't been to a movie theater since I went to go see Knives Out with Billy the Fridge. Shout out Billy the Fridge. Love you drunken peasant. Ben too. They're both delightful. Anyway, I'm also kind of nervous. Guys, I have not been in front of a camera nearly enough. I spend all day on phones, like talking to people and talking to strangers and billing them out for, expensive services. But sitting by myself in an empty room with my cat asleep on the floor. Oh yeah, I have a cat. Her name's Sybil. She's great. I might include a clip of her trying to rescue me from the bathtub when I first found her, because she came out of the alleyway. You know what? I should talk about her in a different video. I'm just gonna keep going on tangents if I don't get my act together. Okay. It's because I didn't enjoy this movie. It's like I don't want to keep talking about it. But I gotta move on, because there are more things I want to discuss. Acting cannot save bad writing, and unfortunately these actors were kind of subjected to some bad writing. The actors do try really hard. There's one character where you're gonna like them from the moment that they come in. She really steals the show, gotta say. This girl stole the fucking movie. And good on her, because the writing was special. The thing that was the most frustrating with this pacing is that because they were so heavy-handed with the foreshadowing, it almost felt condescending. It almost made me feel like they were thinking the audience was more stupid than they are. It's very much related to dramatic irony, which is, for those of you who might not be familiar with that term, it's when the audience knows something that the character doesn't. Catharsis is the moment that the character finds out what the audience and even sometimes some of the other characters already know. Just to give an example, you've probably heard the name Oedipus, probably mostly in relation to the phrase Oedipus complex, but the actual play, the character Oedipus doesn't know that the king that he's killing and the queen that he's taking are his parents. He doesn't know that. And when Oedipus finds out, that moment of catharsis, he takes needles and he gouges out his eyeballs. Guys, Oedipus was innocent. He did not know he was shacking up with his mama. Like, he did not know he was going back from whence he came. Coming back from whence he came? Oh god. Anyway, that is catharsis. That moment. The beginning of the movie is kind of painful in terms of dialogue, especially if you're not as familiar with the previous movies or you haven't seen it in a while. My poor friend, I was so obnoxious. I was leaning over and being like, okay, jump scare in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And yeah, no, it was so bad. I mean, part of the being a writer is that, you know, you see how the sausage gets made, you stop being surprised by stuff. And with horror writing, it is really, really, really hard to catch people. I don't necessarily like jump scares. I appreciate what they can do to an audience. The only thing is that in Insidious, they didn't really use them effectively. With a jump scare, it's really supposed to take you by surprise. The only thing is they were so heavy with the foreshadowing, it wasn't as much of a surprise. The music and the sound effects and the moments were already setting the stage for the jump scare, and that was really disappointing. If you really want to surprise someone, you have to use every element of surprise. You have to hide that moment in a place where you're expecting it the least. Or at least, that's what I think. I mean, jump scares are kind of cheap, but if you're going to use them, put them in the right place. Look at me talking like I know shit. Of course, rules can be broken, and these are all always my opinions, you know. Oh, but also some of the monster people in the movie were comical. Some people in that movie were obviously contortionists, and it looked more silly than scary. And it's because also those scenes were dragged out. And when you drag them out too long, you stare longer at those fucking monsters, and the less detail, the better. You want to be vague. Vague is scary. We are terrified of the unknown. When we don't see it as much, it is scarier. Because our mind fills in those blanks. And what we can come up with on our own is scarier than anything any of us can put on the page. But if we can evoke that, if we can evoke the deepest fears by being vague, by letting the brain fill in the blanks, I mean, damn, you're doing a good job. But it's really hard. But in this movie, they made it even fucking harder by taking so long, especially with the main villain. Also, you know what? They really did Tiny Tim dirty. I can't appreciate that, man. Tiny Tim is associated with happiness in my mind. It makes me think of the old SpongeBob episodes. It's been around for long enough that when I hear it, I don't associate it with something scary. And so those moments became really funny for me. Now that's obviously a personal preference and just how I see it, but that's also because I'm viewing it through the lens of my own perspective, my own experiences, and my own consumption of media, and in this case, Tiny Tim. So that was more funny for me. I laughed too much during that movie. I definitely laughed way more than I should have. It was really obvious about how it was going to end. I know that it's going to end with everyone being okay. There's a sense of that throughout the entire movie. It's like they just didn't quite push the stakes enough. The characters still had reason to give up. The characters could have still shown weakness and run away from the problem and maybe been okay. Maybe not entirely okay, but in my opinion, in order for characters to face their biggest fears, they have to be completely boxed off. There cannot be another option. They can't run away. It can be just an emotional push, but really it shouldn't. Also, none of these ghosts can walk through walls, apparently. and doors don't have locks. Not really sure, just, I don't know, some of just the mechanic of the doors and the not going through walls and shit, that weirded me out. And yet things would appear from nowhere. There were some mechanics of the fantasy aspect of this horror that I wish had been a little more clear. Maybe it's because I just hadn't seen that movie in a while, but there was sort of an assumption of knowledge, which I think great horror can stand on its own. What I'm going to talk about in a little bit are a series of novels that are written so that they could also be standalone novels, which I think is genius. I think it's really difficult, but I think it kind of makes the content more likely to be consumed again and more likely to reach a wider audience, because you don't necessarily have to see the first or second or third movies in order to see the fourth. It can stand on its own. And really, it's a consequence of production companies only relying on franchises where this kind of stuff happens, or else we'd have a lot more standalone stories. We'd have a lot more stories that didn't rely on universes that have been around a long time, and we'd be able to have a bigger flourish of diversity in writing and in stories. We wouldn't be seeing the same thing over and over. But this is the world we live in. Okay, I think I've said as much about Insidious as I really want to. So I'm also going to have to take a break soon. I'm not used to just talking for a really long time. It's been a minute since I've monologued and tried to do it in a way that sounds good in front of a camera and such, and it does kind of take a toll. So let's get to the good part, shall we? I want to talk about a series that I love, that I read this past winter. I burned through these books. I think I'm going to have to read them again. You will recognize the title of the first one because there are 2 movies that were made about it that were interpretations of it. There is a Japanese version and there's an American version. American version sucks. Japanese version terrified me as a kid, and I actually had night terrors until I was like 15 or 16 and sleep paralysis. Which I didn't actually really discover this until I was an adult. Yeah, I thought it was normal to just go to bed and think I was gonna die. Still waiting for the girl from The Ring to come and get me. Anyway, I got over that shit and I ended up writing horror. Funny stuff, right? I want to talk about that book. The book that movie was based on. Ringu, or The Ring in English. Where'd that book go? This is the book I'm talking about. Ring is written by Koji Suzuki. He's a Japanese author. He's super cool. Like, dude is a scientist. He also rides motorcycles and is a dad and just cool dude. He wrote these novels, and each of them stand alone if you read them just by themselves. Now, the first one, I feel like I really need to reread this soon because it made my skin crawl. It made my skin crawl, and that's hard to do, especially when a book has been translated from another language. So not only did the writing in its native language come across effectively, it came across so effectively that the translator was able to keep that as well, which also says something about the quality of the translator. I actually really enjoy a lot of Japanese authors. I read a lot of manga as a kid and watched a lot of anime and was the vice president of the Anime and Video Games Club in high school. I'm so cool. But so as someone who's a little bit more familiar with the culture, it's easier for me to consume that. But, you know, once you start immersing yourself in a different culture of storytelling, it all starts to come together. That's why I also enjoy books that have those appendices with, the asterisks, or they've got the little footnote. I love a good footnote, guys. I love a good footnote. A footnote can really save your butt if something is out of your cultural realm or even in out of your time period, and it's very, very helpful. That's why there are a lot of footnotes in books on Shakespeare. Anyway, I really enjoy those novels. They are beautiful and terrifying, and the movies don't really do them justice. The movies don't take the sexual aspect in the story as deep and dark as Suzuki does in the novels. And in the novel, it makes sense and puts the terror on a whole different level, and also sets up the story for when it takes a science fiction turn in the later novels. All the science and math parts of these books too, if you're a math and science person, and if you're into biology and medical shit, you'll really enjoy these stories. And if you're into theories about everything being a simulation, you'll really enjoy the third novel. You'll really enjoy loop. So it goes ring, spiral, loop. This is a really short way of describing them, but I'm just gonna go for it. Ring will make your skin crawl. Spiral will fuck you up emotionally, and loop will blow your mind. Any videos where I talk about like a movie or a book or some sort of media or storytelling are probably gonna be longer than the others. But yeah, I gotta find some more shit to talk shit about. But anyway, check out Koji Suzuki. Maybe don't check out Insidious unless you have time. Unless you just kind of want something, you know, to zone out to. I don't know why you'd want to zone out to a horror movie though. That doesn't feel like a good time. I don't know. Some people are more masochistic than others, I guess. Anyway, I should go record another one of these. Maybe try to bust out some content. Ayo. Don't know why I did that. Anyway, catch you in the next one. Follow me on Twitter, that I don't use enough. Follow me on TikTok, which I use sometimes. And maybe consider hitting up my donor box. I'm going to put a link to that too. It's just, you know, if you feel like throwing some money at a girl, it's literally going to feeding my cat and paying for my health insurance. Read a book. You might like it.